Welcome to Back to the Book Fair, a radical summer reading program. During Charleston County Public Library's summer reading program, Dorchester Road Library Children staff embraced the Reading is Radical summer reading program theme by recreating the joy of school book fairs without the price tag. Staff will share how they leveraged community partnerships, professional networks, and fellow staff members to bring free books and nostalgic prizes to patrons of all ages. Our presenters are Kristin Hare and Stui. Kristin Hare is a Children's Services Manager at Charleston County Public Library. She currently serves as the interim chair of the South Carolina Library Association's Rainbow Round Table. Kristin holds a BA in English and a master's in Library and Information Science from the University of South Carolina. In her spare time, you'll find her baking with her son, thrifting, and chasing her waffle-stealing cats. Stui is a children's librarian at Charleston County Public Library. She is from the Onondaga Nation in central New York. Stui received her bachelor's degree and MLIS from Syracuse University. Her work experience before librarianship is almost exclusively in early childhood education. If she's not reading, you can find her trying to learn a new crafting hobby, she jokes unsuccessfully, or spending time with friends. Take it away, friends.
Hi, everyone. Please bear with us as we try to share our screen.
Can everybody see the screen fine?
Yes.
Great. Well, welcome to this webinar, Back to the Book Fair, about our summer reading kickoff event. First, we want to say thank you to Lisa and the Continuing Education Committee of SCLA. Let's get started with the intros.
So we won't repeat everything that Lisa already covered. We are going to turn our cameras on, though, briefly so you can see us. So I'm Kristin Hare. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a Children's Services Manager at Charleston County Public Library, and I have worked with CCPL for 5 years.
Hello, my name is Stui, and I'm the children's librarian at Charleston County Public Library. And as Lisa already stated, I'm originally from the Onondaga Nation in central New York. So the Charleston County Public Library's 2023 summer reading theme was Reading is Radical. And this theme related to the retro 80s and 90s. Now, this summer reading theme was actually created by CCPL's programming department, as this was our first year parting with the collaborative summer library program. This theme created an interesting challenge for children's programming providers, though.
After the theme was announced, the Dorchester Road Library staff started brainstorming summer reading program ideas. We thought back to the 80s and 90s and topics like summer camp, boy bands, arcades, and big hair. We eventually settled on the nostalgia of the school book fair and similar reading programs like Pizza Hut's Book It program. The popularity of the scholastic book fairs resonates not just with nostalgic adults like the staff at Dorchester, but also with children who are having their own unique school book fair experiences. So what made the book fair so great? Being able to pick out your own prizes and books, or the checkout counter full of extras like spy kits and cat posters. So we found plenty of proof online through many different memes that book fairs are still a huge part of our pop culture. There's an entire Reddit thread about the magic that was the Scholastic Book Fair. We still remember asking our parents for funds to buy books and spy kits, and many of us still look back at the book fair as a fond memory. In fact, book fairs are so popular that adult book fairs are becoming a very common event. Locally, one of our independently owned bookstores, Itinerant Literate, regularly hosts what they call a not scholastic boozy book fair with Frothy Beard Brewery. And there are even book fairs popping up in other places, like in Madison, Wisconsin, which hosts a grown-up book fair featuring multiple booksellers, food vendors, and other vendors. This year, when they hosted it in January, it was a sold-out event. But we had to ask the question of how we could replicate a beloved tradition on a library budget at no cost to our patrons, and how this program would not only be fun, but also meet our community's needs. So that brings us to the why of hosting a book fair program at a public library. One of the downsides to something like the Scholastic Book Fair and even the adult book fairs is that you can't ignore the existence of inequality. Books and even the cheaper prizes might be out of reach for many children and teens that have school book fairs of their own. And not all book fairs are created equal. The availability of books and prizes is usually tied to school funding. Though many of us were able to look back at the school book fair experience as a positive one, where we came home with spy kits or scented pencils, there were some children that went without. At the Dorchester Road Library, we serve a diverse community with families in a lower income range. We also serve multiple schools with lower reading and writing scores and families that may not be able to afford to own books of their own, but would really like to. So the book fair program became more than a fun retro event. It became an opportunity to meet a need within our own community. And then we just had to figure out how to make it happen on our library budget.
So this is the general timeline of when we had the idea to when we were able to have the all ages book fair. So in February 2023, that's where we like to say we had the idea. Closely following the idea to be able to meet the gaps and make sure that this is a program that everybody, no matter their background, could attend, we started contacting sponsors in March. And then in May is really when our system begins promoting not only summer reading, but summer reading kickoff events. So it was very vital that we ensured that we knew the idea, the background, and the sponsors for that. And then finally, the actual program was held on Saturday, June 3rd. And after much deliberation, we decided to have it from 1 to 4 p.m. To get into the amazing sponsors that helped us make this program possible, I would like to start with our own CCPL programming and communication departments. Programming and communication were vital in not only advertising, but providing program materials such as the posters and some of the prizes that we had at this event. We also had various CCPL staff members that were able to donate not only prizes, but books and including advanced reader copies. TIAG Cares is a charity organization within TIAG that had reached out to us previously in the year to let us know that they wanted to get more involved with the library, specifically our branch. After meeting with them a couple times, we decided that the best way for them to get involved was to have the children's department create a wish list of books. These books were mostly children's books and juvenile books. This wish list was then shared with the TIAG organization, employees, and the employees were then able to purchase these books to donate to us.
We also reached out to Itinerant Literate Books, an independent bookstore in North Charleston who hosts book fairs of their own, and asked if they were able to donate anything for the program. They were able to give us several boxes of advanced reader copies, many of which were adult and teen books, which were the age groups that we were lacking material for. And that provided the bulk of our adult and teen offerings during the program. We also reached out to Technical Grimoire, which is a local to the Charleston area tabletop game publishing company. We reached out to that owner, and he provided us with several copies of his tabletop RPG games and branded tote bags. We also reached out to contacts we had with library workers within the South Carolina State Library and through SCLA connections. And even when we received donations of only 2 or 3 books, or maybe some library swag, it all added up to enough materials that we felt confident about hosting the program.
Marketing. We used various marketing techniques to ensure that not only our community members knew about the program, but also members outside of our community that might not typically come to our branch. The programming coordinators did local morning news shows. There were also social media posts that Kristin created that communications shared both on Instagram and Facebook. A big way that we were able to reach out to the younger members of our community was through school visits, where we promoted summer reading. During the summer reading promotion, we also took this as an opportunity to talk about our all ages book fair and really encourage them and their family participation in coming to this event and ensuring that they understood that this was for literally all ages. Another way that we marketed in-house that isn't on this list is that we have a monthly branch calendar. And this is really vital in our community that may not have typical internet or TV access.
So next is branding. Branding played a very big role in promoting not just our all ages book fair, but all of our summer reading programs. CCPL is a large library system with 18 branches, many of which host their own summer reading kickoff program. So it was very important to us that our programs stand out and that it would be obvious to our patrons which programs belong to our branch specifically. Our graphics coordinator, Roxy, created a branding kit at the beginning of summer reading for all library staff to use. That branding kit included things like color schemes, logos, 80s and 90s graphics, and specific font types. So we used that as a starting off point and then used the website Canva to create our own brand template to use for all of our summer reading materials. Between Canva and Library Aware, those were the 2 websites that we use to create all of our branding and images for this program. And on the left, you can see an all ages book fair graphic. That graphic is representative of all of the graphics we used to promote the program. It's the same look that we used for in-house advertisement, flyers, marquee posters. We created an oversized banner for the day of the event, and we also had signage throughout the event and on the shelving for the books that looked similar to that graphic. We reused the background, the font style, and the color scheme so that we were consistent. And we also used the logo on the bottom right, which Roxy created. The CCPL portion of the logo is our old logo, so it has the retro feel to it. And the reading is radical was our summer reading theme. So using all of those resources from our graphics coordinator and within our own branch, we made sure that when patrons saw that style of graphic, they knew that they were hearing about a Dorchester Road Library program.
Now let's talk about the actual book fair room setup. So we really wanted to make sure that we hit on some of the key nostalgic parts of the book fair. And this really came in with the check-in and checkout stations, how we put the prize table out. The organization of the room really started as we were receiving books. We were sure to organize them by age, such as children, teen, or adult. That way, when we were starting to put the room together, it wasn't a two-step process. Once we started setting up the room to the program date, it was about a week-long process in total. And as you can see, we have the room broken up sort of in stations. Now you might ask, why stations? These photos give you a highlight as to why we chose stations. In the center specifically, you will see our arts and crafts. We would call this more of the activity station later on, but we wanted to have that with the check-in and checkout that you can see in the images to the left separate. So that way it created a natural flow of patrons so they can stay and participate in these activities or go back and forth as they wanted without getting too crowded and feeling too overwhelmed or rushed. The stations were vital in ensuring that there wasn't too much going on in one space at one time. Pictured here is what we would call our check-in station, and this is where we distributed tickets. We settled on giving tickets to patrons because Scholastic Book Fairs, you typically pick up the item, you go and pay. This is a completely free event, but we still wanted to ensure that patrons were a little bit limited in what they were walking with, and that way we would have the interaction that we might not normally have with patrons that are new. So we decided on a ticketing system. When patrons walked in the door, we would explain to them that each person, regardless of age, would get 6 tickets each. So if you were a family of 4, every member got 6 tickets. And these tickets can be used on various books or prizes. Books were 2 tickets each, so the most books that you could walk away with from our fair were 3. And then prizes varied from 1 to 3 tickets. We figured this was a good way for patrons that came exclusively for books to leave with multiple, but not so many that there wasn't enough left over for other members that might be coming in later. And this is our prize table / checkout. Prizes, as I previously stated, varied from 1 to 3 tickets. As you can see, we had all prizes laid out on the table, and they were clearly marked by tape as either being worth 1 ticket, 2 tickets, or 3 tickets. This visual really helped us ensure that children that were using leftover tickets understood what they were or were not able to get with their tickets. The prizes were accumulated through purchases as well as collaborations between branch departments and system-wide departments. Prizes included vintage summer reading t-shirts, magnet chip clips with the old CCPL logo to get into the retro feeling, stick-on earrings, slap bracelets, multicolored pens, spy kits, and much, much more. We had 5 activities during the all ages book fair. To the right, you will see our photo booth, which we had retro props and vintage photo frames to use with our retro background that was created, and the all ages book fair banner that we had resting above that so families could tag us and then we can get even more of it out there. Activities included on the center table were coloring sheets that had retro items such as VHS tapes and cassette tapes, scratch art, the plastic yarn lanyards, and spirographs.
Now on to the books. We were able to use 2 shelving units from our own branch that we would normally use for holds to shelf all of the books that we used for the book fair. We wanted to recreate the scholastic shopping experience with fun signage and outward-facing books. You can see that we clearly labeled throughout the shelving that books were 2 tickets. We had flyers for the ticket breakdown along each side of the shelving, and along the top, we reused that same branding look to label the bookshelves for each age group. So we had 1 shelving unit that was entirely for adult books and 1 that was for children's and teens. So our adult books, as well as the teen books, were sorted by genre. And with the children's books, we sorted them by type. So we kept all the picture books together, all the chapter books together, all the graphic novel books together. So it was similar to how you might find the books in a bookstore. Here are some images of the different shelf labels that we used. So not only did we label each section by genre, but we included a little information that would draw patrons in to read about the genre that they're looking through. So for the numbers, overall, we had 73 participants during our 3-hour-long program. So we had at least 73 people that left with a book in their hand. We relied heavily on donations, and we spent just under $85 of our programming budget on prizes and supplies for this program. So we were able to accomplish this program at a very low cost. Surprisingly, there were a lot of leftover books and prizes. Most of the books left over were adult books. Our children's books cleared out pretty quickly, so our ticketing system was effective in making sure that children were able to receive books. We decided to keep the books out on our public floor for about a month and allow patrons to come out and take a free book. After giving our patrons plenty of time to check out our free book section, we reached out to our own outreach organization and asked if the books could be used by outreach. Our outreach department uses them for things like our community collections, which are collections they curate for various outreach opportunities, like our Books on Buses program, which provides free book boxes at bus stops, or when they curate collections for community centers, like our local Charleston Farms Community Center, which has a gardening and farming collection. They also use the books for outreach programs and giveaways. Sorry, I jumped ahead. We also had leftover prizes. For our leftover prizes, we were able to reuse those as reading incentives later in the summer. And we also had patrons during the program itself who had leftover tickets. So in order to make sure that all patrons felt like they were using every ticket they earned, we allowed family members to share tickets. And we also allowed them to donate any unused tickets to a raffle jar in order to win a swag bag of CCPL items and books later on. So we made sure that we used as much of the materials as we could. So here are our kind of key takeaways on the program itself. Advertising is your friend. There's no such thing as too much publicity. We did a lot of marketing, and we were very fortunate that our programming and communication departments highlighted our program as much as they did, but we still had materials left over. So I would never consider it a problem to advertise as much as possible. considering our own experience. We also learned it's better to have multiples of prizes rather than one-of-a-kind items. We did have a few occurrences where we had a single item because we received donations from individual people, and the kids would argue over who could get that one item we had out on the prize table. We also had families that wanted to have some of the vintage summer reading shirts, and they wanted enough for all of the family to have matching shirts. So we did learn that it's better to have a bulk of one item than any one-of-a-kind items. We were able to use more of the one-of-a-kind items for things like our swag bag that you could win through the raffle, and that was a much better use of them than having them out on the prize table.
We also learned that staff need to be flexible and willing to switch tasks quickly to prevent crowding. We initially put more staff at the activities table since there were 4 activities, and we wanted to ensure that everyone that came in had the assistance that they may need in participating in these activities. This unfortunately left the prize table / checkout table with just one person for most of the event. And what we realized was that multiple families would crowd to the prize table, as well as multiple families would be ready to redeem their tickets to get their items. So we quickly realized we needed to have more staff at the prize table to help families that were picking up prizes, as well as check out as they were ready to leave. We also realized that we have to monitor the prize table more. Since we had the prizes displayed, littles were very excited and would sometimes grab prizes before redeeming tickets. We also learned that no donation is too small. Like we said, we had a lot of leftover adult books, but our teen and children's books went really, really quick. So every single book that we had mattered.
So now we want to open it up to questions for anyone who is thinking of trying to produce a similar program of their own.
I don't see anything in the chat, but I'm just inviting everyone to unmute at this point. I can go ahead. I was wondering, how many staff did you have working that event?
That is a great question. We had
approximately 5 to 6.
Yeah, 5 to 6. We had 5 consistently, and then I think we had one that was kind of in and out. So we had one person on ticketing and check-in at all times. We had one person at checkout at all times. And then we had one person on arts and crafts, and then 2 people that just kind of roved, so that they could jump in wherever they were needed.
And that's like not including all the staff time, like when you were saying all the planning,
Yeah.
and other departments, right?
Yes. I would say when it came to the planning, there were really 3 of us that did the bulk of the planning. The 2 of us and our YA person at our branch, the 3 of us did the bulk of the planning ahead of time. And as far as trying to calculate staff hours spent planning and preparing for the program, I think it would be a pretty high number. We started even doing things like creating the graphics and the branding. That started probably as soon as we had the idea. So it was months of reaching out to people. I think even to the extent of people I knew personally, I was just picking up my phone and calling them and asking if they wanted to be involved. So we used as much time as we could to find every professional and personal resource we could think of for supplies.
Yeah, you guys did an amazing job. Like, what an amazing team you guys have. looks so beautiful, and what a great job. Your numbers are great too. And I really liked what you said about having the multiples, because I guess that's like something to really consider, like that maybe people wouldn't think of as much.
Yeah, there was a stress ball that looked like a cat, and it was a highly coveted item. And there were definitely some tears shed when someone redeemed their tickets for that prize. Because we tried to encourage the children to take a look around at everything, because the prizes were at the checkout table. Even the parents were kind of encouraging them to do the prizes last. And that also created issues because kids would see something on the prize table they wanted, another kid would grab it, and then when they came back, the prize they wanted was gone. So one thing we learned very quickly during that experience, and we actually pivoted and changed how we did it right away, is instead of making families check out all at once, we would let them just redeem tickets as they went. So if they came in, they wanted to go to the prize table right away and grab a prize, we just let them do that. And then they could go look at the books and redeem the rest of the tickets later.
Oh, that's great. That's a great workaround.
Yeah, there was a lot of like learning in the moment, like, okay, this was bad. How do we fix this? So I think that goes back to that key takeaway of you really have to be flexible and able to adjust on a dime when something's not working.
Yeah.
And then to also communicate it to everybody else. So I was on the checkout table, so I had to make sure that when Gahusby was on ticketing, she told people as they came in that they didn't have to wait to check out all at once. So it involved definitely making a decision that we're going to do this very differently than we planned, and then make sure everybody is aware.
Yeah. Did you do any library talking or were they just like so busy like that, like you didn't do a library spiel? Like how many new people did you see, and like versus like returning?
Yeah, we saw some people we hadn't seen before. We definitely had calendars, and we tried to kind of promote summer reading. We're doing things like this all summer. We had one very dedicated patron who came to nearly every summer reading event, and we did see many of the families come back, at least for summer reading.
That's great. We have a hand raised, so
yeah.
I'm not sure if they want to put it in the chat, but
hey, my name is Catherine. I work at Richland Library at the Cooper branch here in Columbia. My question is, you sort of answered it a little bit just now, but I was just wanted to know more about the feedback that y'all got like the rest of the summer, since it was a kickoff event. I guess it's hard to compare like this summer with previous summers because of like the pandemic, but do you feel like it really did a good job of kicking off? And did you see a lot of the faces that you saw at the event coming back all summer? What was that like?
Yeah, so unfortunately, Gahusby, this was her first summer reading with us, so she can't compare, at least at our branch. But I will say we've done summer reading kickoffs in the past. We missed 2 summer readings in a row between COVID, and following COVID, there was a summer that we were closed for renovation. So this was our first summer reading kickoff in 3 years. So compared to previous years, we would do summer kickoff events, but we certainly didn't have these numbers. And we would typically do a summer reading kickoff event that was geared only to children. So I think some of the success in this one came in it being geared to all ages. So we definitely brought in larger numbers and a more diverse group of people than we normally would. So just comparing numbers, we definitely had higher attendance at this kickoff. And we did see quite a few repeat families throughout the summer that kept wanting to come to our events. One thing we didn't put in the slides that we did is part of our summer reading program. When children came in, we gave them a blank notebook and we called it their camp notebook. And we had Camp Dorchester things in our branch. And for each Dorchester exclusive event that they went to, they got a sticker, and they were made to look kind of like camp badges. So the book fair was also their first sticker. And if they kept coming to our programs, they could kind of collect all the stickers. And we had one particular patron who was obsessed with getting every sticker. She definitely wanted to complete them all. So I think the sticker initiative helped bring kids back. And also just as they were there, we were making sure they were getting calendars. We were hyping up our next event. With the school year starting, it's been kind of a mix of repeat patrons as far as them carrying through the summer into the school year. One thing we've seen consistently throughout summer reading programs is that patrons will travel if they really want to go to a program. More in the summer than they will in the school year. So we've had some consistent patrons who came to that first book fair and are still seeing us now, but it's very much a mixed bag.
Thank you. I also just wanted to know what day of the week y'all did the event, because
Matters.
yeah, I don't know about y'all, but on the weekends we're more short-staffed. But I guess you might have been aiming for like a weekend.
Yeah,
We are definitely more short-staffed on the weekend, but our community, a lot of the parents are working families. So we wanted to ensure that, knowing our community and the demographic, we figured the weekend would be better for families to come in larger groups. So we picked a weekend, and we had a lot of committed staff members on that weekend that were willing to either come in and do extra time or to just be a part of it on top of their regular library duties that day.
Gotcha.
yeah, we hosted it on a Saturday and it was from 1 to 4. So we did have people come in on what would typically be their day off. And that's just what we had to do to have the program adequately staffed.
Are you going to do it again?
Everyone asks us that. And our first instinct is to say no. It was a lot of work. I think I would love to do it again, but I don't think we could do it quite the same way. I know one way that we got so many of the books that we had was by getting donations from itinerant literate. And that was kind of felt like fate situation, because the bookstore was in the process of getting rid of, they had a old Airstream trailer, because they used to actually be a mobile bookstore. And they had this Airstream full of advanced reader copies, and they were trying to go through the Airstream to empty it out because they were going to sell it now that they have a storefront. So they desperately needed to get rid of these advanced reader copies. So we were lucky that we met a need they had as well by asking for donations. So I'm not sure if they'll have quite that bulk of supplies that they did at the time. I think one thing that could be replicated, probably it would be easier to replicate, would be the relationship we had with TIAG Cares, where we found a business that had within it a charity organization, and being able to just make up a list so that we knew, like, our donations will be diverse. They're going to reflect our community. They're going to include a wide range of ages and reading levels, because we've selected the books that we would like. And then they just send a wish list out to hundreds of staff members. I think that was something that not only could we replicate, but a lot of other libraries could. So I think if we were going to do it again, I would lean more into using that model of donation than necessarily going the local route. I think that if we reached out to Itinerant, they would definitely give us everything they have, but I don't think it would be the same bulk. And I think we would also we definitely get help internally from people, and the local tabletop gaming publisher, he's actually coming out and like hosting D&D programs for us. So I think we've had a continued enough relationship where he would get involved again. But I don't think we could copy paste it the way that we did this summer. There are just some ways that we received donations that wouldn't work.
I think the biggest thing would be the timeline. This was done in such a short amount of time. So I think if we were to do this again, we would just extend the timeline to find those other resources. I think that's what it would really come down to.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We would probably want to start as early as January, maybe earlier, if we were going to try to do it again next summer. Because this was very much a like, hey, I have a crazy idea. What if we tried to do a book fair? And then like, but we can't really do a book fair. That's unrealistic. And then, okay, maybe we could do a book fair, but how do we make it happen? So there was a good chunk of time spent to, is this even possible and how would we do it? So I think allowing ourselves more time to replicate it and then leaning more into soliciting donations from businesses that can get hundreds of people involved would definitely make it easier to do again.
The beauty is that you did it like amazing. Like you did such an amazing job in like no time at all is just awesome. And can you share like what are your highlights? Like what stands out to you as like the most satisfying to each of you, like your takeaways, the things that you know that you just makes your heart swell?
So I'm gonna say we have this patron, Savannah, who came, or no, not Savannah, Symphony. Savannah's the mom. We had a family come for the book fair. The daughter, Symphony, came. She got the notebook, got the sticker, and she was obsessed with coming to every program and getting every sticker. She came to our escape room. She made this, we had kind of camp postcards out as a passive program, and she made one for me with like summer stuff all over it. And she was just always so excited to see us. She even like we did Camp Dorchester Day where we did a bunch of summer camp activities, and she even made we were making buttons, and she made one for Gahustui with a beaver on it because she's from Beaver Clan. So knowing that we got to know families so thoroughly that they like really built relationships with us, and they were excited to come back and excited to come to our programs. She's definitely like the most extreme version of someone who was excited to see us. But we had like a grandmother who kept bringing her grandkids in for our STEM programs. We had kids who came over the summer and then wanted to come to STEAM in the fall. So just seeing patrons who enjoyed themselves and felt like we were providing quality programming, and the book fair just being the start of it. Like we did something in one day that they loved so much, they wanted to keep coming back and seeing what else we would do. That was probably the biggest highlight for me.
I guess my biggest highlight was the patron excitement and the fact that some families stayed for close to 2 hours. I don't think when I was at a Scholastic Book Fair that I was there for 2 hours. So the families that wanted to stay and that were basically begging to stay, I think that was really rewarding. And I think it was really rewarding afterwards to talk to our branch and just see the numbers and see like, we pulled this off. Like it was an idea that we're like, we don't know how we're going to do this. This is intense. I don't know how we'll get this done, especially on a weekend where we're more short-staffed. And it was just amazing to see what our branch was able to do in such a short amount of time and with the resources that we have.
Yeah, so inspirational, like just really Awesome sauce. Good stuff. Yeah. I'm opening it to anyone else that would like to ask our presenters. And I guess also a question would be like, well, what kinds of things were people wanting? Did they gravitate to? Like, what, like if people were to stock up, like, is like historical fiction or like sci-fi, or
I know romance went pretty well for adults.
I would just say children's books in general.
Yeah, the
They
children's
were
books went
gone.
fast.
Very
And all types of children's books. I mean, even the nonfiction. So every category of children's books. I think we have a community that really enjoys being able to own books and have them in their home, especially for their children.
I know multiples went pretty quick too. There were sisters that came in. They just happened to be visiting our branch that day, and a staff member directed them into the book fair. And I heard one of the sisters go up to the adult fiction and was like, "This is a book that I wanted to read with you. They have 2 copies. We're taking them." Like, there was no question. So kind of just seeing like a little sister book club start too. That was pretty popular. I feel like a lot of duplicates went together with the same people.
that is so great. Like that shared reading experience that you hope everyone can have at some point in their life. So great.
I would say the prizes were pretty popular too. I feel like the parents thought some of them were really cool. We had like click pens. We have, if you remember, like the pencils where you load in the individual pegs that have lid on them. Slap bracelets.
The slap bracelets were the best, having parents have to explain to their kids, this is a
Yeah.
bracelet, and they're like, no, it's not. And then the parent just instantly smacking on them, and
Yeah.
they're like, whoa, it's a slap bracelet.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun part of the program too, was seeing parents introduce their kids to some of these things.
Some adults walked with some of the prizes that we thought would be geared more towards kids, just for the nostalgic value. Like, I know someone walked away with one of the multicolored pens, and I said, good luck holding all the colors down at once.
Yeah.
You know, I have such fond memories of book fair too. And like, I just think where you're making it possible for everybody to be together at the same time is just so incredible, because that's how like the tradition, you know, gets solidified, and the love of the library happens at the same time. And it's just great. It's great to hear also like that, like all of those memes that you showed on that slide. That
Yeah.
was great. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, one of the first things you do when you get an idea is you Google it. Like, I'm always like, I don't want to repeat something that every other library is already doing. I mean, unless it's really popular and wanted here. But just went down a rabbit hole of, you know, what do people think about book fairs now? And I mean, there's stuff all over BuzzFeed. There's entire Reddit threads. There's still a lot of love for the book fair. And I think because of the community we serve specifically, we always try to pair a really good, fun idea with a community need. So if there's a way that we can do something that's fun, but it's also providing something that people in our community really need, then that's kind of our ideal program. It's one of the reasons why we host escape rooms a lot, because if you've got a family of 4 or 5, that's a really steep price tag to take your family out for just an hour. So I think equity and what our community is really looking for are always at the forefront of what we're planning. And this was just a super fun way to replicate something that all ages would enjoy, but make sure that it's accessible.
I think that's great too, to say that, because it's true. Like, a book fair can be really nerve-wracking to someone that doesn't have the ability to purchase things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because that's, unfortunately that happens. And so what a great way to equalize that and make it available. That's great. Is there anything you noticed differently after COVID? Like you mentioned, you're not like so many of us had to be, shut down and stuff. So like, I'm just curious, like if there's anything that anything that you're noticing that maybe is impacted because of like the shutdowns that we had.
I think between the shutdowns for COVID and then being renovated, because we were closed for such a long time, our community changed. Prior to COVID, our children's area was usually quiet. We had really low attendance numbers for a lot of our programs. We served a lot of working families, so during like typical business hours, we wouldn't really see many people in the building with children. And when we came back from COVID and from being renovated, we found that our community had shifted. We have a lot of people coming in during the day now. We've also noticed even things like needing computer or internet access is less of a need. I think COVID forced a lot of families to kind of figure out a way to get that access on their own. Because even things like for our adults, our adult computers used to be like in high demand, and now they're not as high of a need. So I think we've seen that COVID has forced families to find other resources for certain things. And we've also found that we have more families that are coming in during the day. They're wanting to hang out in the library for a few hours. They're really looking for more of a space where they can just kind of stay and play. So we've been trying to do more drop-in programs. We try to have a lot of passive programs. So I think maybe one of the benefits for us in opening so far past COVID because of our renovation is that when we did reopen, a lot of the families were willing to come and stay in the library for extended period of time. And we've definitely made accommodations to provide enough to do that they want to just be there all day.
That's great. It's really great. Well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you again for your expertise and your time and your willingness to share with everyone. We appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
It's really fun to share this idea, and we definitely want to help other people learn from our experience and hopefully replicate it themselves.
Well, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we're seeing thank yous in the chat as well. And so again, thank you. And we love what you're doing. And thank you again for sharing so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.